Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, January the 13th, 2016, show number 1076. I am your host, Shawn King. Thank you guys very much for joining me here, the second show of the brand new year. Hopefully so far, we're in almost the middle of the new year. Things are looking good for you. Things are looking okay. I'm going to Prince George in 10 days. Woohoo! It's not that exciting. But the exciting part is I get to teach my class. I'm teaching 2 classes in Prince George. Thanks very much to my good friend Vito Mori up there in Prince George and his lovely wife Becky, who hopefully I'll see on Friday night and take them out to dinner. I'm teaching the beginning photography class in the morning and then the DSLR class in the afternoon at the Prince George Civic Center in beautiful downtown Prince George. No, I'm kidding. It's not that pretty. It's a pulp mill town or wood mill town. Pulp? Wood? I know they're both the same thing, but Middletown, whatever. I like going there because it's Vito and Becky and class. So that's all I need. The biggest problem is I need to ride the motorcycle into the airport. So everyone in 9 days, start praying for good weather, because otherwise I'm going to get in the plane soaking wet. That's going to be the worst part. If it's raining that day, either the Friday when I go in or the Sunday when I come back, if it's actually even the worst part is the Friday. If it's raining the Friday, I will get on a plane and sit there. Luckily, it's only an hour and a half plane trip. I will sit there soaking wet for an hour and a half because there's no place at the airport to dry off or anything like that. So that's, it is. All I hope for is that it's not cold. I can deal with wet. It's the cold part that's awful. On tonight's show, we'll talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com about Powerball and about clueless journalists. We'll push the wrong buttons, right? Did you buy a Powerball ticket? I know even Sly's bought a Powerball ticket, and she's Canadian. So am I. But have you bought? I know a lot of our audience are American. Buy one. If you haven't already, buy one now. Sly says, of course you're going to PG. It'll be cold. Yeah, but once I get to PG, I'll be in cars. I'm just worried about the motorcycle trip. I'm not riding the motorcycle to Prince George. Yeah, your odds of winning the Powerball, your odds of being hit by a comet are better. There's a greater chance you'll be hit by a comet, like in the next 20 minutes, than there are of you winning the Powerball. But what the hell? Buy a ticket. If you can afford it, if you got $1, you got $2, you got $10, buy a Powerball ticket. As long as it's not money you're taking out of your rent or anything else, as long as you're not expecting to win anything. The thing about the Powerball and other huge lotteries like this is that the money you spend is the cost of a dream. That's all it is. You're blowing $2, $20. And for the next X period of time, you get to dream about what you would do with that kind of obscene amounts of money. Literally, the Powerball now, if you took it as a lump sum after taxes, would be $500 million. $500 million US, which is Canadian, like 800 million. That's a little our dollar's worth. What would you do with that kind of money? Yes, I know you'd give some to family, and you pay off your debts, and you'd buy your mom a new house and give money to charity. Yeah, I know that. What would you do for you? What selfish thing would you do for you immediately? Let's assume you're going to do all the other nice things you're supposed to do. All right, you're going to take care of your nephew twice removed. Okay, we know that. What are you going to do for you? Be selfish. Tell me. On air at yourmaclifeshow.com. I was saying during the pre-show, for me, I would ride my motorcycle into downtown Vancouver onto Burrard Street and park illegally, because I don't care anymore, in front of the Ferrari dealership. I'd walk in, I'd call one of the sales guys over, I'd show him a picture of the ticket, which is now in a safe deposit box, by the way, and a picture of the winning numbers and go, these match. Give me 2 of those, one red one and one yellow one. He's going to say, well, there's a 2-year waiting list. I'm going, no waiting list. Powerball winner, no waiting list. What's the price? I'll double it. I'll take 2 at twice the price. That's what I'm doing for myself, to be selfish. I will drive that Ferrari at obscene speeds around the city Every cop that stops me, I'll show them the Powerball ticket and go, dude, charge me whatever you want. Don't care. Don't care. And then we'll come home, get onto Google, and start doing real estate searches for homes in Italy. Because I'm out of here. Would you keep your job? If you say yes, you're an idiot. Don't keep your job. No, just quit your job. If you want to, walk into your job and quit pleasantly, quit politely, or walk in your job and tell your boss he's an asshole and walk out again. Doesn't matter. But no, don't. Because if nothing else, if you keep your job, it means some unemployed schmuck out there is eating ramen while you, a multi-millionaire, keeps your job. No, don't. Quit your freaking job. What would you do after you quit your job? Would you travel? Would you set yourself up in your own business? What business would you like to do? If you had what would ostensibly be unlimited amounts of money and you could do it, what business would you set up that you could either be a part of or run? What job? What's your dream job? What would you do with the money to create your dream job? The first thing I do is I hire Sly to be my organizer. I make Sly quit her job. I double her salary. I make her quit her job, and she becomes my organizer because Sly is the most organized person on the frickin' planet. Sly becomes my executive secretary because every boss Sly's ever had has loved her because she's the world's greatest executive assistant. And then I start the photography business. And I go around the world taking pictures. There, that's me. What would you do? On air at yourmaclifeshow.com. Sly says, screw that. Come on, Sly, for twice the money? Twice the money? All right, 3 times. How's that? 3 times the money of what you're making now. All right, fine. 4 times is my final offer. Man, wouldn't the prizes in YML be great after that? We'd have some smoking ass prize. We wouldn't need Secret Santas anymore. We'd have like the next prize on for Friends of YML. The next prize would be one of everything Apple owns. That's the prize, and we're gonna do that once a week. We're gonna keep one of everything. You get a Mac Pro and an iMac and a 12-inch MacBook and a MacBook Pro and an iPhone, and you get one of everything. Every week we're giving that stuff away. Sherry, you can't buy Johnny Ive. Come on now. That's slavery. We can't do that. That's inappropriate. Mosquito says, I'd be done with work until we got bored. Yeah, but the thing is, could you get bored with $500 million? Do you think you get bored? Do you think work means that much to your day-to-day existence that you get bored not working? And even if you did get bored working a regular job, you wouldn't get bored of your dream job. That's the point of a dream job. Mosquito would have a chauffeur on call. Hiker would buy a 2-bedroom condo in West Vancouver and have some change for power for a month. Yeah, that's be about it. Sly says, the business of nothing. I'd have $1 billion. Mosquito says, the hardest part would be deciding which of our friends to give gifts to and how much. Yeah, that's the thing that as we read about all this stuff, you hear is the hardest part for a lot of huge lottery winners, multi-million-dollar lottery winners, is because I think I read yesterday in 46 out of 50 states, the names of the winners have to be public. And therefore, everyone you know or have ever known is going to come out of the woodwork. Somebody was saying that in the first 6 days, they had phone calls from 31 relatives they'd never heard of before. And it was making them crazy. You know what you do? Hang up. You say no. You change your phone number. You know which relatives you can give money to. You don't have to give money to Aunt Joan's second cousin twice removed. You tell those people, did I hear from you before yesterday? No? Well, guess what? You ain't getting a dime. If you didn't talk to me when I'm poor, I ain't going to talk to you when I'm rich. Mark Cuban said that his advice for a lottery winner would be, he said that if you weren't happy yesterday, you won't be happy tomorrow. Bullshit. Bullshit. I guarantee you, I would be happier with $500 million tomorrow than I was yesterday. No, money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys a better kind of misery. Okay? One of the people who say money doesn't buy happiness are those who have it. Poor people never say money doesn't buy happiness. Poor people say, let me try. Let me give it a shot. Brian Monroe says, you should be able to request a dinner with Johnny Ives. Remember, Tim Cook does that once a year. He does a lottery for charity, or an auction, for charity, where you can bid on lunch with Tim Cook. So it would be about an hour. Hiker BC. Somehow the IRC chat room was talking about sex slaves all of a sudden. Apparently it's Sherry and Sly. And then Hiker says, Sly, you already have a slave for your love. Dude, come on. Get a room. Brian Monroe, I'd love to meet up with Tim Cook and the rest of the Apple board. You could if you buy enough stock. I guarantee you they'll take your phone call. So yeah, send me emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. What would you do selfishly in order to be able to make your life better, happier, more fulfilled? I don't know if any of that stuff would happen. It certainly would give you a freedom. I read somewhere today, something talking about it would give you a margin. So many of us live from paycheck to paycheck, or from paycheck to day before paycheck. Having that kind of money gives you that margin for your life, to not have to worry about those things, to not have to look at price tags. Someone tweeted that if I was a Powerball winner, I'd sort things on Amazon.com from price high to low instead of the other way around. That's what we do. When you don't have the money, you price things from low to high. Well, now you can go from high to low, brother. Little things. You know how much easier traveling would be? When you could go to a website and go to kayak.com and just choose any flight you want. You don't got to think about the flight. You're going to think, oh, this one's going to cost me an extra $40 if I go on that Tuesday at 9 a.m., it's cheaper than if I go on Saturday at noon. Wouldn't that be great to be able to have that kind of freedom in your life? But just for little things like that. Sherry says, no, I'd buy a private jet. You know what? I wouldn't buy a private jet. I'd fly first class. And I might do that NetJet Uber thing for jets, but I wouldn't want to have my own jet. But I've been on private jets, and they're very cool. But I don't know if I'd want the maintenance. Email onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. When we come back, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. I wonder what he would do with $500 million. We'll ask him right after this. This is Your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. I am Shawn King. On the phone, beside the phone is our friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing?
I would do exactly what I just did, and that's open a Heineken.
The question I asked Jim was, what would you do with $500 million? Have you? But Jim, you live in the States now. Have you bought a Powerball ticket?
I can't get into that.
Really?
You know. Well, you're not going to win.
No.
Come on.
No, you're not going to
win. What are the chances of winning? 1 in like 292 million.
Yes.
I saw that you posted yesterday.
Yes.
So.
But don't you think just buying a ticket, you know, the old cliche that someone's got to win it, and in fact, no, someone doesn't have to win it. But isn't it the idea, as I was saying in the pre-show, it's the kind of idea that, you know, at least buying a ticket gives you the opportunity to dream about what you would do with that kind of money.
I'll dream what I'll do with $100 that I didn't spend on buying lottery tickets.
Exactly.
I don't know. I mean, people have much more money than I do, clearly, because I just can't spend gobs of money on that stuff.
Well, if nothing else, Jim, you could buy a better bridge to live under.
If I did win something like that, I would fix the bridge. I would, and I'd get a new shopping cart too.
That's a good idea.
Stuff around.
At least fix the wheels, if nothing else.
Yeah, I'd get some WD-40. Maybe these wheels would last a bit. They wouldn't squeak so much.
Did you hear that story? I did not know this, but there was a story in the news last week because of the weather in Ontario that the only road route from east to west Canada was shut down, was broken because the road had buckled, or the bridge had buckled because of the cold. Did you hear this?
No.
And to me, it was mind-boggling that this country, as big as it is, we have one road that they can cut off that cuts off transportation east to west. One frickin' road.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
The Trans-Canada gets a bump in it and everything shuts down.
Oh, my
Jesus.
God. Yeah, but imagine how cold it had to be to bend that bridge.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's talk a bit about some really sad news this past weekend. David Bowie passed away. What are your memories of listening to Bowie as a kid?
You know, I mean, I think that when songs like Let's Dance and Fame and all that came out, I was probably in junior high, I think. But my favorite Bowie was Ziggy Stardust.
Yeah.
You know, that was game-changing music right there. And the thing about Bowie is that he never stuck with anything for very long.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, he never even stuck with the color of his eyes for very long, you know? I mean, Bowie would come out with Ziggy Stardust, and he did it for an album, and then he would come out with something else, and he'd do that for an album or two, and then he'd come out, and, it was just, but I don't know, it was great stuff. Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, man, that's some great music.
I remember seeing Bowie before I'd heard Bowie, and in 70, I guess it was probably 75 around then, and thinking, who the hell is this whack job? I'm not going to like this guy. And then hearing the music and going, oh, wait a minute. The music was just, transcendent is the wrong word to use for a kid, but I really, really enjoyed his music. And the great thing, as you said, his chameleon nature, he moved. If you didn't like his previous album, don't worry about it, because his next album wasn't anything like the previous album.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, it could be electronic, it could be rock, it could be almost anything. Yep. You never knew. And I think that was a great thing about Bowie, because if you look at a lot of his music, I can honestly say there's a lot of his music I didn't like.
Sure.
But the same music I didn't like is the stuff that other people would like.
Yeah.
And maybe they wouldn't like Ziggy Stardust, although I don't know if I've ever met anybody that really doesn't like Ziggy Stardust. But, that's the thing that I really enjoyed about Bowie. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't really like Let's Dance and that whole pop era of Bowie. I enjoyed the rock stuff a lot more, but,
He his latest album, I think the way this latest album came about, when I've been reading about it and his interactions with people, it's in a small kind of way a little creepy, but also very Bowie and very interesting, because he knew this was going to happen. He knew that he was dying of cancer. And he left all these clues. I mean, the name of the album refers to cancer. The first song, Lazarus, refers to a biblical character who rose from the dead, who Jesus rose from the dead. The first line of the video that he released, a very strange opening of that video, says, "I'm in heaven. I'm in heaven now." What do you think about that? What do you think about that kind of? Is it a message to the fans? Is it a just a way of going out on his own terms? What do you think about the way this was handled from Bowie's perspective?
Well, I think it's interesting that nobody knew.
Yeah.
That was a very interesting thing. But, when he did go out on his own terms, and that's a great thing, that he was able to do that. And, that he was able to finish the album. Can you imagine? Yeah. And see it get released. But I haven't listened to it yet. I don't know if it's something I would like or not.
Yeah, I've listened to the first. I watched that first video, and it was just too raw at the beginning for me to actually want to listen to the entire album. I'm sure I will at some point. Talking about how people do things, this seems to have been the last couple of days for cluelessness among our fellow media people. The first was a story from the Telegraph in the UK that somehow Apple was making an iPhone to Android switching app. And when I first read the story, I thought, no, they're not. That's the stupidest thing in the world. Why would they do this?
Yeah.
And the disturbing part was, okay, so the Telegraph can say that, but all of these Mac tech news websites that supposedly you'd hope know what the hell they're doing, pick up on this story as if it was a fact. As if there was some sort of evidence for this.
And people at the Telegraph are sitting back laughing their asses off.
Exactly. Just taking in the page hits. Just taking in the click views. Apple, unusually, had to come out and say, no, we're not doing this, you ass hats.
Yeah.
The thing that bothers me, and I want to get your thoughts on this, is this a story the Mac media should have basically regurgitated from the Telegraph, or should we expect more critical thinking from the Macintosh focused media?
Well, I always hope that we can expect more critical thinking, and for Apple to have to come out and actually address that seems a bit crazy. Can you imagine how many requests Apple PR must get a day to address things?
Yeah.
And this is the one that they had to focus
on. Yeah, that's what I found very interesting.
So, I don't know. It's too bad that they have to focus on some of this stuff, but they do. Because we ask them the questions.
I have no problem with the Mac media reporting that this is what the Telegraph said. But what I want is the Mac media to say the Telegraph said this, and the Telegraph is stupid for saying this.
Yep.
There's no way this is going to happen. This is a dumb rumor. Because the problem happens when people who aren't knowledgeable read sites like this, see this information, and maybe don't see the follow-up. Or maybe passes information on to other people and becomes like a game of telephone, and it becomes distorted in 7 different viewing or 7 different tellings of the story without anyone ever getting the actual facts. I want more critical thinking out of the Mac media, and we're just not getting it. These people are generally just regurgitating stupid shit they hear from other people.
Well, I don't. I'll be honest with you. I don't even know who reported it, and I don't need to know. But yeah, I would hope that anybody that did write about it would say, "This is what they wrote, and we just don't think that's true." But the better thing to do, I think, would just be to ignore it, which is the proper way.
There's a lack of common sense in the Mac media of simple reasoning and logic, and the idea of if they had read this story from Telegraph and said, you know what, that's a dumb story, we're not going to touch it, or we're going to report on it and say it's a dumb story. If they'd waited a couple days and then Apple comes out and says this, then they wouldn't look stupid. The problem, I think, is, and this is where I always throw this back on the readership, for the readership of these websites to not hold the website's feet to the fire and say, you guys are idiots for reporting this. I'm not going to read your website anymore if you keep reporting on this dumb stuff.
Yeah, that would be nice if that happened.
It's not going to happen, though, is it?
No.
Yeah, not a chance. You posted a story on the Loop, loopinsight.com, that Apple Music surpasses 10 million paid subscribers. You commented, yes, this sounds right to me. Does that sound high to you, low to you? What are your thoughts on that number?
No, it sounds about right to me.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, Apple hasn't commented on that, and, I guess I'm not really surprised, but overall, that number, that sounds about right. I mean, they started off, they had, 11.5 million.
Yep.
Not paid, but 11.5 million. Then they dropped down to 6.5 million paid after the free subscription was over.
Yep.
And now they've built that up to 10. So I would be interested to know how many subscribers they have free and paid right now.
Yeah, we're not going to get that number from Apple. This story comes from the Financial Times that Apple has 10 million subscribers. It doesn't say how many, as you say, it doesn't say how many are paid versus how many are, some aspect of their 3-month trial.
No, my understanding was those ones are paid.
Not according to the Financial Times story. It could be.
I think that those ones are paid.
Just going quickly through the story and don't see anything about paid, but let's assume that they are paid. Someone had an interesting comment on the Loop about this, where they asked, "Yeah, Apple's got 10 million paid subscribers to this, but shouldn't they have more?" Bob on the Loop says, "The world's most valuable corporation started out with hundreds of millions of people, devices, managed to squeak out 10 million subscribers." Versus a company, Spotify, starting from nothing but a bit of software and managed to grow to 10 million subscribers in 6 years. Is that a fair comparison? Is it?
Well, I mean, the comparison is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's the way the comparisons go. But should Apple have more? I think so.
Yeah.
Yes. Apple has 500 million devices out there. I'm not sure what percentage of those are able to run Apple Music with the new OS, but I would say a fair percentage of them. And so that would equal certainly more than 10 million subscribers. But, we're talking about a new service. And is this something that Apple can really do? I mean, can they make a music service with, say, 100 million subscribers?
Yeah.
Boy, that would be a big feat. Especially at $10 each.
Do you think that Apple could get to 100 million subscribers for Apple Music in any time frame you'd choose?
Well, and that's a damn good question, because even the largest out there only has 20.
Yeah.
So and Spotify has a lot of free people too. They have free access to some of their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, is 20 million too many? What happens when Apple starts to grow? Does Spotify start to dip, or does everybody start to grow? I mean, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered before you can answer that. I mean, have we reached the point where 20 million, or let's say 30 million, 40 million overall, is that the top number?
Yeah.
When you add up all the music subscribers combined? How many of those people have both? I mean, I have Pandora and Apple Music.
Yeah.
So, you factor that in. Well, there's 2 subscribers, one for each. So I don't know. I don't know what number is the high watermark. I mean, why do 100 million Apple iOS users not have Apple Music? What's their reason for not having it? I don't know.
I think the key is a number we're never going to know, which is what Apple considers to be a success for Apple Music. I mean, 10 million is a significant number of people. It's a large audience that you're talking about. Does Apple need that number to be bigger? Does Apple need that number to be 20, 50 million? We don't know. They may be happy with 10 million people listening to their servers. I think it's a big number. I think it's a significant number, but for Apple, it may not be. And until we know whether Apple's happy with this or not, we don't know what kind of moves Apple would do, pro or con, to either goose those numbers higher, lowering prices, more advertising, whatever it might be, or to encourage more folks to sign up. And I think that comes with things that I think we're going to see this year with the idea of more exclusive content to Apple Music, the kinds of things that you're only going to see on Apple Music for whatever period of time it might be. I'd be willing to bet that Eddie Q and everyone at Apple was very disappointed that Adele didn't put her album on Apple Music. I bet that was a big blow to them because that was the number one selling album of the year, even though it only sold in the last month of 2015. It's probably going to be the number one selling album in the next 16 in the next 6 months. David Bowie will be right up there, obviously. But I think that's something that Eddie Q and those folks are working very hard on, is to get those kinds of exclusives to Apple Music. That being said, it just reminded me of something. I was very disappointed to not see any Bowie tributes on Apple Music or Apple.com. Were you?
Well, not Apple.com, no.
They did for George Harrison.
George Harrison was different.
Different how? I would argue that David Bowie was a much bigger influence on music than George Harrison.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Not the Beatles. I mean, George Harrison himself.
Yeah, George Harrison did some pretty big things.
He did.
I'm not surprised to see that. I would have been shocked to see something on Apple.com.
Okay, what about Apple Music?
Well, but yeah, I'm surprised that there wasn't. I didn't really look for one, but I'm surprised that there wasn't. I mean,
yeah, I don't know why that didn't happen. That should have been all over Apple Music as soon as it was found out. I don't know if there was permissions. I don't know if Bowie's album is or isn't on Apple Music right now, but it certainly felt like a little bit of not a slight, but more of an oversight from Apple's point of view.
They even had a little tribute to Lemmy, so.
Yeah, exactly. And who the hell was he?
Sorry,
kidding. Sorry. Calm down. Chip Chowdhury claims that Tim Cook is clueless. No. He claims that Tim Cook is completely clueless. Interesting point of view from Mr. Chowdhury, isn't it, Jim?
I would like you to name one thing that Chowdhury has done. One thing.
Oh, that's easy. Chowdhury said in 2014 that Apple only has 60 days left to come up with the next big thing, or else they were done. 60.
Yes.
How'd that work out for Trip?
How are people still talking about him?
There is the primary question I would like to know. How does this asshat still have a job?
Well, doesn't he own his own firm or something?
No, that's Enderly.
Oh.
Enderly of the Enderly group. But it's interesting that one of the comments that someone made to me was that, and maybe this brings up the whole reasoning why we see this from these people, is the idea that these analysts say these things that are just completely idiotic simply to get their firm's name in the quote-unquote newspapers.
Right.
To get people talking about it. Because people, we know this, we've been doing this show 20 years now, we know these analysts never get held to account for the things they say.
Never.
And yet they get mentioned and interviewed and on CNBC and on Fox News all the time. So if we think of these things as simple PR moves from Chip Chowdhury and others, maybe that explains why they say such utterly asinine things, because there is no one who actually can possibly believe that Tim Cook is clueless.
Tim's an extremely smart guy. He's made Apple more popular and more powerful and more financially stable than what it has ever been.
Yep.
And then you get Chip Chowdhury, who's, writing his research notes out of his Volkswagen on the side of the street. And, we're supposed to take what he says as an intelligent thought on Apple.
Yep.
And it's just not. I mean, if he said, here are some things that need to change, okay, that's one thing, or here's where I see the Mac is, but he's not.
Yep.
He's spouting this stuff that makes no sense at all.
Yep.
And, there's no way for him to back up what he's saying, and there's no real way to argue what he's saying.
Yep.
Because it makes such little sense that I saw it and I just threw my hands up and said, ugh, forget it.
Yeah. This is how wrong-headed can one Apple analyst be? This is by our good friend Philip Elmer DeWitt, or Philip Elmer Fudd, as I call him. He says, innovation, he quotes Chowdhury as saying, innovation at Apple is over, wrote Chip Chowdhury. By the way, Chip Chowdhury is the co-founder of Global Equities Research. He said that innovation at Apple is over on October 23rd, 2013. So this guy has consistently been, at the very least, a bear on Apple. What I would like to see Apple do, because Chowdhury shows up on the analyst call every single one they do, I would like Apple to not take his questions. I would like Apple to simply say, no, you personally insulted our CEO. We are not going to talk to you anymore.
No, I don't think that's a good idea. I think what they should do is say, you clearly do not understand the business.
No.
So we're not going to take your questions anymore. Because there's only two ways to explain it. He's being, just vicious in his notes, and being contrarian to the point of insulting.
Yes.
Or he really does not understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, how can he possibly be a good analyst?
That's right. Yep.
I don't know. Either way, Apple should just be able to come out and say no. But, that would just give him fuel for the fire.
Yeah. And you know what? I have no problem giving the guy fuel, because then at least if someone steps up, someone leads, whether it be Apple or other analysts or the media, then others will jump on the bandwagon and eventually he'll go away. But we know it's not going to happen, because we have Rob Enderle as a perfect example. And 15, 20 years ago, we have John Dvorak as a perfect example. You can make a good living, if you're a media whore, slamming Apple. As Dvorak did before Enderle, and Enderle did before Chowdhury, and Chowdhury's just jumping on the same bandwagon and going, hey, look at all the press I get. Look at all the clippings I can get. Look at all the TV appearances I can have just by saying dumb shit about Apple that I don't got to back up.
But see, here's the thing. I don't think any of us would mind if Chowdhury came out and said, I think Apple stock is going to drop in half in a month if they don't come out with a product. And in a month, it dropped in half.
Yep.
You'd say, holy shit, this guy's really good. And then he came out and said something else, and that happened. And then the next thing happened. And, you could say, wow, he's good at what he does.
Yep.
So we better pay attention to him. And when that but that's not what happens. I mean, you see things from analysts or even from writers, from Gruber, that says, Gruber always picks apart the pixel stuff on iPhones, and here's why they're going to do this, and here's why I think this is going to happen. And it makes a lot of sense. If it does happen, then, okay, great for Gruber. If it doesn't happen, at least he explained what his thoughts were in saying, I think the screen will be this size for this reason. If they make a different screen and he was way off, well, then he's way off. But you can see the reasoning behind why he said what
exactly.
He said.
That's right.
And I have no issue with that at all.
Yep.
No issue at all. But when somebody comes out, if Gruber came out and said, I think Tim Cook's going to blow monkeys out of his ass, well, how what?
Yeah.
But that's kind of what Chip Chowdhury does.
Yeah.
Trip. That's what he does. He just comes out and says this crazy stuff. And you think, well, how do you argue that?
Yeah.
And what kind of monkeys would they be? I mean, you don't, there's no way to even argue what he says because it's just so ridiculous.
Speaking of more clueless journalists, this is I wrote about this morning from Gizmodo. Some journalists attending CES earlier this month received a pitch from TomTom offering vacation vouchers in exchange for social media coverage. And a disappointing, if not entirely surprising, number of reporters went for it. Journalists who tweeted images of their step counts were eligible to receive vouchers worth $5,000 in exchange for the coverage. TomTom asked them to tweet about how far they'd walked while using a complimentary Spark. The journalists who tweeted the highest number of steps would receive the vouchers, according to emails provided by Gizmodo. Now, interestingly enough, John Gruber over at Daring Fireball says, I don't think this is as cut and dried a case of improper behavior as some are making it out to be. He's pointing that at me, because that was the first one that I saw anyway, pointing this out. Do you agree with Gruber, or do you think these guys are utter cheap whores?
I certainly agree with what you said, but I don't know Gruber's reasoning behind what he said.
Well, what John is saying is that they weren't writing articles about TomTom. They were tweeting from their personal accounts. The tweets themselves made it kind of obvious that they were involved in some sort of contest also. So what John is saying, what John is saying is that these guys did this, and they kind of, and in fact not all of them did, made it obvious they were involved in a concert, in a contest. That this was the equivalent of a sponsored tweet. Yeah, so therefore, it was okay.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's not something I would do. I doubt it's something that John would do.
No, he says, that said, I certainly wouldn't have done it. It's undignified.
Yeah. So, I think
it's part of a slippery slope that journalists really have to be careful about, especially if you are a capital J journalist, not just some blogger who snuck into CES through the back door.
Hey, fuck you.
Exactly. But if you're a and I hate calling them this, but if you're a CNET journalist, you're ostensibly a professional. And professionals don't do this kind of stuff. You don't get involved in what is factually helping TomTom market their product. That's what they were doing. They weren't writing stories about the TomTom Spark that it did what it's supposed to do and it costs this and it's supposed to do this for you. They were simply receiving a free product and then tweeting out that they'd use this product to walk X numbers of feet in order to win a prize.
Yeah, and TomTom knew that they couldn't say, write about this and we'll give you a free product because they're not really in charge of editorial.
Yep.
But, so they are in charge of their own Twitter accounts.
But the thing is, TomTom wouldn't have wanted these guys to write a review about it because what if the product sucked? This way, TomTom gets PR. And it gets people who follow these journalists thinking, well, he's using the Spark. Therefore, I should use the Spark. You know what I'm saying? There's no editorial content here whatsoever. It's simply a journalist going, hey, I used a Spark and I walked 5,000 feet in order to win a prize. There's the rub for me. The fact that these guys were doing this in order to win a prize. It's not like someone gives you, Jim, you do it all the time. Apple gives you review product and you happily use it for a week, 10 days, then you write a review, you come on the show to talk about it, you talk about it on your other podcast, you whore, you're everywhere talking about the product.
Wow.
But at least you're a whore that can't be bought cheaply. That's the important thing here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Seriously, Apple does not say, Jim, here's a product. If you write about it, we'll give you an extra $1,000. And you go, okay, I'll do that. What they're doing, so maybe that means you're a cheap whore. I'm not sure where I'm going with this, Jim.
I don't know where you're going with it either, but, I mean...
But for some reason, it's the prize aspect of this that bothers me the most. That it takes, as Gruber says, it's certainly undignified, but it certainly takes away any sort of critical thinking or comment about this when you're doing it for a prize as opposed to doing it for an editorial content.
Right. No, I agree with that.
Sorry, Jim. I take it back. You're not a cheap whore.
I'm expensive.
Exactly. And on that note, folks, Jim has his own podcast. He has two of them, count them, two of them up on the iTunes store. One's called Amplified. The other is called the Dalrymple Report. Thanks, Jim, for joining me, Jim. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Shawn.
Talk next week. Bye.
Bye.
I had to get out of there before I started calling him even more names by accident. Usually when I call Jim names, I want to do it on purpose. I want to do it intentionally. There, I was just sort of going down that horror lane and just, sorry, Jim, that was not intentional at all. We were talking earlier in the show about the Powerball. Is the biggest thing. What would you do for a Powerball winnings? There was this story. Where did I get this from? It was from Bro Bible. What would you do for $1 billion? Porn? Murder? A new poll reveals things people would do for that kind of money. And some of the things that they have are really kind of stupid. Things that I would do for a hell of a lot less than $1 billion. I'm not proud to admit this, but they were saying things like, would you shoplift? Basically, I would do absolutely anything that didn't hurt other people or get me a felony arrest conviction. And I stress the felony part of it. If I could do something that would just get me like a minor assault charge, a misdemeanor, yeah, I'll do that. And I'll do it for a hell of a lot less than $1 billion too. But one of the things people were saying would you do porn for $1 million? And for most guys, depending on who the porn is with, we do. Oh, sorry, I hit my screen. We do it for a hell. We might even pay to be in the porn. What would people be willing to do for $1 billion? OnePoll.com conducted a survey of 1,000 people who were asked if they would commit various dubious acts for money. So let's start with small illicit activities. Turns out 15% of respondents said they would shoplift or illegally bet on a sporting event for $1,000. Yeah. Now, you know what? I wouldn't shoplift for $1,000. Bet in a sporting event? Yeah, I've done that for free 1,000 times. 1% of respondents said they would kill someone for $1,000. Those people should be locked up. Okay? For $1,000, you kill someone for $1,000? Oh my God, you need help. Because that's at least a $50,000 job. At least a $50K job. 1 in 5 are willing to steal a street sign. I've done that for free. Flash a stranger. I've done that for free. I went to college, all right? 1 in 10 are willing to lie under oath. See, now that's something I wouldn't do. Because that could get you a felony conviction. Steal a bike. I'm assuming they mean a bicycle. For $10,000? You ain't got to steal it. You just offer the guy who owns it $2,000. Knowingly spend counterfeit cash. No, not knowingly. Again, felonies. For $100,000, 25% would steal a street sign. Yes, easily. I've done it for free. Forge a signature. No, that's fraud. Steal from a restaurant or hotel. Now, they don't say steal what. Because I'll admit I've removed some things from hotels. Towels. Soap. That kind of stuff. 1 in 10 said they would enter into a sham marriage for $100,000. Now that surprises me because the number is so low, that 1 in 10, 10%. Because nowadays, marriages are so easy to get into and get out of. You'd think I don't know if there was conditions on the $100,000 on the marriage. You had to stay married for 5 years, whatever it might be. But just getting married to someone and then getting a quickie divorce for $100,000, yeah, I'd do that. For $1 million, 10% of respondents would star in a porno. Again, it depends on what kind it is, but for $1 million, they say 10%. I think 10% are lying. I think that number is way too low. For $1 million, 10% of people would become a drug mule. No, not for $1 million. I wouldn't do it for any amount of money. Again, felonies. Especially in the U.S. where your drug convictions are really long. Commit credit card fraud, arson, armed robbery. No, I wouldn't do any of those things for any amount of money. Punch a stranger in the face. I've done that for free too. So yeah, for $1 million, for $1 million, I would punch a stranger in the face. I'm sorry. I'll admit that. Smuggle drugs over the border? No. Not going to do that. For the grand prize of $1 billion, 12% of men said they would be willing to commit murder for $1 billion. Oh, man. Now, there's nothing in there that says you won't get caught or you will get caught or whatever it might be, but $1 billion? Is it a stranger? Is it a loved one? Some of us have got to think about that. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't do it. But I can think of situations where you can make that attractive to me. Men were also far more likely to be swayed by money and carry out horrific acts. Guys are 4 times as likely to want to kick a kitten or puppy. I can see that from guys. Yeah, for money. Yeah. Men were also nearly 3 times more likely than women to perform a sex act on a stranger for $1 million. Yeah, I can see that. Again, it depends on the sex act, but yeah, I can see men being more likely to do that. We're just pigs. And everyone has the price. Of all the acts, respondents said that murder was the worst act one could commit, followed by poisoning someone's pet, treason, framing someone for murder and arson. Shoplifting was considered the lightest crime. So yeah, what would you do for that kind of money? It's a lot of money. There's no doubt about it. It's a lot of money. So again, have you bought your Powerball ticket? Has the draw happened already? I might already be a winner. I might not even have to be here. When is the actual drawing? It's 6:25, so it's 9:25 in the East. Doesn't the draw happen already? Sherry says, "Can I murder the person who kicked a puppy for $1 billion?" Oh dear. Not yet. Les says it's 10:59, so we still have time when we're all still friends. Because you know what's going to happen. If somebody who listens to the show wins and we all don't get a cut, we're going to be pissed. We're going to be so, there was one of the funniest contests I ever read about was 1986, and MTV had just launched VH1. And as the contest for VH1, the winner of the contest won a 52, whatever the original year of the first Corvette was. It was 36 years afterwards. So what was that? When the first? I think the first vet was 53, somewhere around there. So the contest was the winner won an original first-year Corvette, and a second-year Corvette, and a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. The winner won 36 Corvettes, one for each year that the Corvette had been in production. I thought that was kind of an interesting original contest. And so I remember watching the interview with the winner, and it was some guy in East Coast of the United States. And, obviously very excited. And they said, what are you going to do with 36 Corvettes? And he was just an average guy, wasn't a millionaire else again. So he said, well, I'm going to have to sell 12 in order to be able to afford the other ones. So he was going to sell 12 in order to finance the 12 he was going to keep. So that's 24. And he had 12 left over. And with the 12 leftover vets, he was going to give one to each one of his friends. I thought that was really cool until I thought, what if you're the 13th friend? You're going to be pissed off at Jimmy. You're like, dude, you gave Paul a vet. Why didn't I get a vet? I was at your wedding, man. You imagine being that 13th friend when 12 of your buddies are all driving around in Corvettes? And you're the one guy who didn't get a Corvette? I wouldn't talk to that person ever again. If I was the 13th friend, I was like, no, sorry, dude. I'm not talking to you ever again. You gave 12 people vets and I wasn't one of them. Same thing with the Powerball. If you won that kind of money, Sly, Arcsign, Brian Monroe, DH, Hiker BC, Lesh, Mosquito, Sherry. I'm calling you guys out who are in the IRC right now. If y'all won that kind of money and didn't share it with us, I'm not saying share it equally. No. I'm talking about if any of those people I just named won $500 million and didn't give each and every one of us $1 million, I would boot you out of the chat room. Right now. I would tell Sly to boot you out of the chat room. Because you are no friend of mine. You're gone. Sherry says, YMLCon will happen. That's right. Send me emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. You want to tell me what you would do for $500 million or with $500 million. Again, assuming these fair assumptions that you're going to give X amount to friends and family and those kinds of things. Robert Studer says, it's interesting what you say about what you do with lottery winnings. It sounds similar to the stories of those poor individuals that won and were broke within 5 years. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Except I ain't that stupid. Because in real life, the first thing I would do is exactly what I said. My first stop is to my bank. First stop is take a picture of the ticket and then go to the bank and take that ticket and put it in a safe deposit box. The second stop is to a lawyer. Just a general everyday lawyer and go, dude, what do I do? I haven't even called the lottery company yet. I haven't even said a word to anybody. I haven't told anybody about this. I'm going to go to a lawyer and say, help me. I just did this thing. Then you go to a tax accountant or a lawyer. Then you go to a financial planner. And you get these three people in a room and you tell them, what do I do now? Then you talk to the lottery company. Oh, no, I would certainly blow a interesting large amount of it. I'll tell you that right now. $500 million, I'm going to blow 10% in the first week. I guarantee you. And when I say blow, I just mean spend it willy-nilly. And I do mean going to give money to, I'm going to, my sister in Nova Scotia, her and her husband and the cutest niece in the world, Emily, they've always wanted a farm. They've only got 1/5 of an acre right now. And it's like literally it's a backyard plot. They got goats and they got chickens and they want to be farmers. I don't understand why. I don't understand why they want to be farmers, but they do. I would call up a real estate agent in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia and go, what farms are on the market right now? Yeah, okay, I'll have 2 of them. And I'd buy a farm for my sister. I'd buy houses for family members who want and need them. Set up college funds for nieces and nephews. Everyone in the IRC chat room gets $1 million. That is my promise from me to you. You would get $1 million. So yeah, the first 50 mil I just blow. But the rest of it, absolutely, I would not be that guy who you'd hear about in 5 years is destitute and has nothing but really nice clothes as he lives under the bridge with Jim Dalrymple. Yeah, Sherry, 46 states require winners to be identified. MacMan says, how the hell are you going to blow $90 million in a week? Dude, really? You don't think big enough. You right there. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9, 10 people in the IRC chat room. Then there's $10 million right there. There is a farmer in Nova Scotia. That's $1 million. 2 Ferraris, 2 more $1 million. So I'm up to 13 million already. in the first 15 seconds, I've already spent $15 million. You kidding me? A house in the hills of Tuscany is going to cost me $1 million. 16 million. It's easy. If you've got a good enough imagination, the new Nikon D5S comes out. Me and Monty are getting one. By the way, did you see that video I posted about the autofocus and shutter speed in that thing? Which is freaking unbelievable how fast that is. And Monty's not even here, is he? Oh, that's right. Monty, I can't tell you what Monty did, but Monty had a very exciting day today. He swore me to secrecy, but if you see him on Twitter, Monty, good luck, buddy. A D5 costs about 10 seconds in interest in that jackpot. It does. I'll buy 2 of them. You can make a movie with so-and-so about spending Brewster's millions. Nah, not doing that. What else would you do with it? Like just to blow. Certainly buy a house in Vancouver. I'd certainly buy a downtown condo in Vancouver on the top of one of those buildings I've been looking at for 20 years. The one on top of the Sylvia Hotel building with the tree sticking out of the top of it, looking out over English Bay. I'm buying that house. I don't care who the guy is. I'm buying it. I don't care what price he wants. I'm buying it. Buying a boat. Boat's going to cost me $500,000. An ocean-going boat. The interesting thing is, and I've been talking about this too, I wouldn't buy another motorcycle. It's really funny about that the motorcycle I have is the motorcycle I want. There's no other motorcycle in the world that I would want. I would rent a track to go on a track day, and me and Matt would go on a track day on Ducatis. But as a street-going bike, the bike I've got is the absolute. I'd buy new gear, new gloves and boots and pants and jackets and that kind of stuff. A new seat. For the actual bike, I'd buy a new seat. That's it. The motorcycle I have is a perfect motorcycle. Sherry says, I'd be the 10 millionth and first subscriber to Apple Music. Mosquito, I would buy all the asthma meds. You guys just gotta think bigger. Les says, first I'd move out of my dumpy little shithole apartment and I'd throw a big old YML party. Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Now, Les, would you throw the party in Rhode Island? Les lives in Providence, or I think outside of Providence. See, I'm not throwing the party in Vancouver. Vancouver maybe. But the party would be either in Las Vegas. Where else would it be? In Las Vegas. And everybody who listens to YML could come. And I'll pay. if you but it's only for those folks who sent me an email. Because I've saved every email that anyone's ever sent me for YML. So you would say, I want to come, and I'd search, and if you've sent me an email in the past, I'm buying you a ticket. And we're going to Vegas. But if you just come out of the, it's like, people say, oh, they have all these relatives that just show up out of the blue. Maybe I'm a hard-hearted bastard, but I'd have no problem telling those folks, no, go away. I don't know who you are. I haven't heard from you in 20 years. You're not getting a dime of my money. I'd be more likely to give money to people who I've never met. MacMan. MacMan is going to get more of my money than my second cousin twice removed. Because at least MacMan talks to me. At least he's had a conversation with me. I don't know. I think there are all kinds of stories. And every time you hear about these kind of lotteries, you hear the horror stories of those folks who blew their money. But I would argue those folks were going to blow their lives anyway. I think most of us recognize the responsibility that kind of money comes with, and that we would be responsible-ish. Yeah, you're going to blow a certain percentage of it, as you should. As you should. I'm getting emails. I don't know if I should read this email. After spoiling my friends and close family, I would repair a heart I almost broke last year. I would start by traveling the world, having fun, and taking lots of photos with the only man who loves me unconditionally. You know who you are. Sent from my iPhone. All I can say is, what the fuck do you mean almost? The hell do you mean almost? Ain't no almost about it, baby. Emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. Let me know what you would do with $500 million. Eric Zilstra says, just a couple of Chicago songs to consider. Still going on with this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing. He says, Chicago was pretty awesome in the 70s. That was before their best singer and guitarist accidentally shot himself. Check out Make Me Smile, Color My World, 25 or 625, Saturday in the Park. I agree. Those are great songs. I'm not saying that Chicago wasn't a good band. I'm saying they are not worthy of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Or, again, let's call it the Music Hall of Fame. I don't think Chicago, because in a Hall of Fame, one of the great things about this is that in sports Hall of Fames, it's all about numbers. It's about statistics. If you hit X number of home runs, you're going into the Hall of Fame. If you steal X number of bases, you're going into the Hall of Fame. You win X number of games, you're going in the Hall of Fame. You can't say that about music. There's no number of albums sold that guarantees you entrance into the Hall of Fame. It's about, in theory, quality. And for me, if I was running the Hall, it would be about influence. And I don't see, even though they've got good songs, I don't see Chicago as having that kind of influence that deserves being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I retweeted this afternoon. Rob Gunsmith says, 1 in 4 car crashes are caused by texting, and yet people say, won't be me. There's a 1 in 292 million chance of winning the Powerball. People say, you never know. It's funny how we delude ourselves with these kinds of things, isn't it? That people, there are some people who honestly believe they have a shot at winning the Powerball. You don't. You have a minuscule, just incredibly small chance. It's not going to happen. The laws of probability say you are not going to be the one to have that happen. Yet people still think, oh, could be me. No, it really, really can't. It's not going to happen. Our friend Scott Randall in Long Island talking about the Christmas show. He says, being Jewish, I had no Christmas celebrations to send you, but I'm writing this to you instead. Your list of Christmas spells was interesting. Latkes, thank you, latkes, are potato pancakes and are quite delicious if made well. I think someone included that because many times, not always, Hanukkah and Christmas occur at the same time. They are fried in very hot oil to represent the 1-day supply of oil that burned for 8 days, when the Jews at the time were hiding in caves for fear of their lives. Now you say potato pancakes. Are those like hash browns? Or is it more of a pancake kind of batter type thing? Hash browns are basically just refried potatoes? Or do you mean potato pancake as in a pancake batter type thing? Just curious. One smell I'm surprised they did not include is the smell of roasting chestnuts. As a child, I remember walking in New York City at the time of year and smelled them. The street vendors were making them. I don't know if I remember as a kid the smell of roasting chestnuts. Mosquito says potato pancakes, shredded potato, egg, onion, a bit of milk. And Sherry says, I never smelled roasted chestnuts. I have smelled roasted chestnuts, but I don't remember them being a Christmas thing back home in Nova Scotia. I've smelt them in like downtown Vancouver. There's a couple of vendors that'll do that in the winter time. I don't think of it as a Christmas smell, though. Interesting. Now, even though I do not celebrate Christmas, being a musician, I always loved all the secular Christmas holiday songs. Oh, that's right. Scott pointed out how many of the most popular Christmas holiday songs we'd had were from Jewish composers, which I thought was really interesting. Gary Apter in Boise, Idaho says, have you ever done an ongoing segment on basics for Mac housekeeping? I'm often surprised when someone at the Boise Mac Computer Club doesn't know some trick. Often it's me, he says. Safe boot mode is a good example. I recently bought a wired keyboard from Amazon.com. Holding down the left shift key just won't trigger safe boot mode. I've recommended that trick to follow as it's built in by Apple. I suspect that you know many examples of things to do to help keep your machine running its best. Just a thought. Again, I'm often the one that says, wow, how cool that is. It might apply to the photography portion as well. Interesting, Gary, we used to have a segment. Sly used to have a beginner's segment on the show. I think one of the issues is that for the most part, the Macs don't have those problems anymore. Many of us old-timers remember the days of OS 7 and 8 and 9 when you had that extension dance along the bottom of the screen when you rebooted your machine. And you had to be a bit of an expert to know what all those little icons meant when you were troubleshooting. There's a lot less troubleshooting needed nowadays for Macs. And with the internet and Genius bars and Apple Tech support, there's a lot less call for those kinds of questions. So I don't know if there'd be a real need for a Mac Basics segment on Your Mac Live. Plus, there's other shows that do that kind of stuff. And I would argue do it better. So I don't know if I'd do something like that. MacMan, yeah, rebuilding the desktop, zapping the PRAM, all that kind of stuff. Using Conflict Catcher to find extension conflicts, MacMan says, yeah, Conflict Catcher was a godsend. I love Conflict Catcher. It helps so much. So much. I forgot to ask him. Never mind. Our friend Roddy Paws says, hey, Shawn, from what I've seen, people with depression seem to often also have anxiety. I don't know if you do, but I was diagnosed with both this year. I found that chamomile tea helps me a lot. I prefer the Calm tea from Tazo, but I'm sure any would work. Not sure if you drink tea either, but I just wanted to pass it along in case it helps you. That and my service dog helps me a lot, too. I'm not much of a tea drinker. I was when I was a kid, if only because that's what I had for breakfast. My stepmom, Bev, would make every morning. She was a morning baker. She would make tea, what are called tea biscuits. They're basically the same kind of biscuits Southerners have for gravy. And I would, oddly enough, these are hot, fresh out of the oven. I'd butter them. And then for some odd reason, I don't know why I did this, I would dunk them in tea. I would make myself a cup of red rose tea. It was always red rose, because I'm a good Canadian boy. Red rose tea. And then I would put the biscuit on a spoon and then dunk the biscuit into the tea for a couple seconds, then eat the biscuit. I don't know why I did that. Because now it sounds disgusting. I still remember that film of butter that would get on the tea. And I would drink the tea. I'd have like 3 or 4 of those biscuits and then drink the tea. But I haven't drunk tea like that in years. I only drink tea when I'm not feeling well. When I'm sick, you got a sore throat, that kind of stuff. And I don't like the taste of chamomile tea. I never have. I never like the taste of any of those I guess they're green teas or black teas as opposed to the traditional red rose type tea. Never been a fan of any of those kinds of teas. Yeah, DJ McIntosh, tea was replaced by beer. Yeah, that's right, exactly. I've grown up and I'm not drinking tea anymore. I'm just drinking beer. Again, on air at yourmaclifeshow.com. Robert Studer says what he would do with lottery winnings. Buy a pharmaceutical company and raise the drug prices 5,000%. I kid, he says. Yeah, smart ass. That's funny. I got a friend in Louisiana. Sends, I need to send you a recipe to jazz up your Mac life. It's Mardi Gras after all. Okay, maybe that's where we have the Your Mac Life con party. During Mardi Gras. No, you know what? If I'm going to go to Mardi Gras, I'm going to one in Rio. I'm not going to go to the one in Louisiana. I'm going to Rio. I think that's where you got to go if you want to go to Mardi Gras. Not the American version. Go to the original version. So send me emails as always to onair at yourmaclifeshow.com. I love getting emails from you guys during the week. I'm betting. The other thing is, do you guys realize the Powerball has been artificially rigged? Rigged from the point of view of one of the reasons why the jackpot's gotten so high is because the rules have changed. They added more numbers, more balls to increase the odds. So the odds are against someone winning it tonight. So it's possible this is going to get up to $2 billion next time around. The publicity for this is fantastic. This is one of the reasons why they do it, is to get this kind of publicity. That's it for tonight's show. I want to say thanks very much, as always, to our good friend Jim Dalrymple for joining us here on the show. Thanks to you guys for joining me live or on the archive, however you choose to listen to the show. And a big special thanks to all those folks who subscribe to Your Mac Life. I appreciate your subscriptions. Please become a subscriber to Your Mac Life simply by going to the website at yourmaclifeshow.com. On the left-hand side there, you can subscribe for $2, $5, $10, $15 a month, whatever you so choose. It comes out of your PayPal account or out of your major credit card. Come to my account, and I use it to buy stuff. Lottery tickets. I'm going to blow it all on lottery tickets. It's just the way it's going to be. Until next week, folks, as always, thank you guys very much for joining me. I've been Shawn King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!